Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The motion for today's debate is: this House opposes attempts by the feminist movement to redefine traditional feminine roles and behaviors as empowering. Representing the proposition, we have the team from Taiwan, and in the opposition, we have team from Croatia. From the proposition side, our speakers are first speaker Jude, second speaker Emily, third speaker Latisha, and the reply speaker Emily. On the opposition side, our speakers are first speaker Lea, second speaker Lena, third speaker Domagoj, and reply speaker Lena. Each speaker will have 8 minutes to deliver their speech. The first and the last minute of each speech is considered protected time, during which points of information, POIs, may not be offered. The judges will signal the end of protected time at the 1 minute mark, after which POIs can be offered, and will signal the return to protected time at the 7 minute mark. At the 8 minute mark, they will give a double clap or ding to signal the end of speech. Additionally, there will be 3 claps or dings at 8:15, and the judges will stop listening at 8:30. Best of luck to both teams, and I'll hand over the floor to our chair judge.
Empowerment is when you say a housewife is powerful because she's a mother, not because that you have to be a mother in order to be empowered. This is a crucial point that the study proposition misses and why they lose this debate. In my speech, I'll firstly have some points of rebuttal, then a first argument about opting in. So firstly, at the top of my speech, I have to define what does empowerment mean and how this definition is likely to be made. We tell you, these definitions are going to be made by the feminist movement. This is literally in the motion. We tell you 3 things of this. Firstly, it won't endanger other narratives. We tell you, there are still narratives in status quo which are very, very powerful, such as like being a girl boss, not being submissive, like being a STEM girly, going for your job, not just like complying to men, whatever they say, being loud, etc. That means on our side, it is not going to be, oh, women now want to only be secretaries. This is like incredibly sexist from the side of proposition. It is like counter narratives with this. We only give like people more choice to define what they want to be as a woman. Secondly, other narratives can coexist and like role models can coexist. That means we empower choice that is currently endangered in a lot of women that want to be mothers, that like wearing makeup, etc. Thirdly, we are going to show you how is this going to be accepted in society in our first argument. Now, I want to define some things. We tell you that the motion only states that we only have that the feminist movement only needs to attempt doing this. That means that the burden of proof on us is that we do not have to prove that feminist movement will succeed in redefining it. Only that the potential impact of redefining are good, and that this is the principal role. Why empowering and normalization that the study proposition pushes cannot coexist? We tell you we need empowerment, not normalization. Because status quo, there is a very, patriarchy is very like empowering. That means we need a counter push on this. We cannot stay neutral, but push in the other side. For example, the same way we have like positive discrimination. For example, we cannot just say, oh, accept queer people to the colleges. We have to give them guaranteed seats at universities and jobs. That is why we exclusively need empowerment, not normalization. We tell you on our side, there's a narrative that by the feminist movement, like pushing on like empowerment roles, etc. Through like firstly social media, where you are hyping other women for like being a mother, for like wearing makeup, for like having like a nice outfit, etc. Like through movies, for example, how the Barbie movie, like we defined wearing a skirt, wearing pink as something empowering. By exposure, this leads to normalization, firstly by the members of the movement, and secondly members that are not in the movement. Now, I want to rebut their first argument about empowerment. Sure.
The degree of harm you receive in these positions is much higher because you lack that economic empowerment and freedom.
What? We just told you how these counter narratives can coexist. In status quo, very high narrative is of being a girl or having a job. I'm going to rebut this right now. First argument there is on empowerment. Firstly, they tell you, oh, makeup is made by men, skirts are made by men. That is why they're bad. Okay, but women accepted those narratives and made them theirs. That means motherhood is for women, makeup is for women, skirts are for women. This is a part of their childhood. This is part of their identity. This is something you want and you like. Even if it was made by men, you made it yours because you are a woman. Secondly, they tell you, oh, it is capitalistic focus. Capitalists made makeup in order for you to feel beautiful. Okay, this is a very narrow rebuttal on their side. We tell you you cannot capitalize of motherhood, but even if we are only talking about makeup and skirts, a lot of women like it, and a lot of women want this to be a part of their identity. They haven't interacted with this. Thirdly, we tell you how do they change women being a psychiatrist rather than being a doctor. We tell you why this narrative on our side so powerful enough to make you not go to college, which is it probably only affects on our side women who are secretaries or either side. That means they are trying to push a burden that on our side women are not going to want to be doctors, women are not going to want to be, I don't know, go work in STEM, they're only going to be secretaries. They need to make much more legwork in order to do this. We tell you on our side we're only giving people choice, which is going to be in my argument. But even we tell you that even if this narrative of empowering women who wear makeup and who are mothers takes some media space, the other narratives of being career focused and being loud and taking up space is already rooted in society. That is the first thing that will come to your mind, something that has been propagated for years. Their position is not in danger of these other women. Also, they tell you, oh, now when you're redefining something too much, you're going to be, you're not going to. If you're defining something so much, you're going to have the harms of the redefining, because now you can scapegoat on the feminist movement not being the same all the time. We're telling you, no, this is okay, because now we are including more women in feminist movement, because feminist movement is for women, and it is not only for women who wear pants. Now to the first argument about opting in. What is the problem in status quo? We tell you that the feminist movement is presented as very homogeneous. It had to push the narrative, women have to be like men in order to feel accepted in the society, in order to get jobs, in order to get credit cards. That means this is extremely opposed to the four narratives being a mother, wearing skirts, wearing makeup, etc. When you think of a feminist movement, you think of men-hating, exclusively career-oriented, blue-haired, screaming women. This alienates a lot of people. Firstly, it alienates women who are more traditional. These are women who are socially coerced into wearing skirts, makeup. Your mom brought you skirts. Your friends wore makeup. This is something you love. This is a part of your personality, something that makes you feel good. Note, these aren't extremely traditional women. We live in a society where this is the norm, and this is something most women enjoy. Secondly, on minorities, where there are people who are systematically not able to focus on a career and have to be mothers. They cannot afford not to wear makeup and skirts in this community because they have to be accepted. For example, people in smaller towns, or for example, Latin American communities, being a mother is something, an ideal you grew up with. It is a lot worse on their side when you, as a woman who want to do this, which is a part of your culture, which is a part of your identity, when the movement who should be yours, who should be for all women, tells you you're not good enough and it strictly opposes you. What happens when we empower these women? Firstly, on their side, when they are not empowered, firstly, they cannot see themselves in the moment because their livelihood and values are not accepted as we framed out in this debate. Secondly, they're shamed directly by the others because people really tell you exactly how they decided the proposition, also proved in their rebuttal and their arguments. Why are you conforming to the patriarchy? Why are you not one of the girls? Why are you not part of the movement? When the only thing that you wanted to do was have a child. Best case on their side is that you're not shamed, but you're locked down upon. Oh, she's just a poor housewife. She's coerced by her husband. She's so it is so bad for her, etc. The impact of this is first on the principle, because this is a movement that represents themselves as for all women. They cannot exclude and need to convert to include all. Every decision, every rally, every ad the feminist movement makes impacts you as a woman. People associate you with it. Feminist movement pushes narratives of what woman is being, what values they are, what women want. That means when true empowerment is the only way they can actually be accepted in this movement as we framed in. Impact of this is also practical, where firstly women feel better because they feel accepted. This is a community of women that you won't be accepted in. We give women a choice not to be a mother or to or to be a mother. The only thing that we change is women not being shamed, because historically they have been shamed by men. We tell you that feminist movement shouldn't propagate and directly or indirectly shame them as men that they are fighting against. Secondly, on opt-in, where we tell you some women will resonate with this messaging because there is no longer the extreme narrative, oh, you have to be like a girl boss, etc. This means that they are going to consume their information, their messaging, vote on issues propagated by the movement, etc. That means the feminist movement gets more support and more visibility because now you have more members in it. That means on our side, we only give women choice, which are now especially excluded, which are minority women, which are women who just want to be mothers. So proud to oppose.
What the side of proposition fails to realize is that housewives are on their side of the house, shunned away from the movement because the movement doesn't see them as worthy, doesn't see them as women who are strong, doesn't see them as women who are smart, who, for example, chose the right choice, and constantly shove in their faces they should be doing something else because this is not worthy of their time. What happens to those women is that they don't feel accepted by the movement. What happens to women who have the same narratives as this women is also find the movement very radical, which is worse for the women in the movement subsequently and worse for the movement's capacity. In my speech, you will hear a couple of points of rebuttal, then our argument about the contact theory. So first point of rebuttal is what will the feminist movement likely propagate? And please listen to me closely because this is important and you will realize how they completely strawman our case. Being submissive is a patriarchal definition of a woman and is generally hated by the feminist movement. You can't tell me, stand here on the speaker point and say, and as a speaker tell me, the feminist movement will propagate a woman not reporting, for example, sexual abuse at the workplace, a woman just getting over some situation, a woman being fine with having a smaller wage, because this is never and never will be a message that the feminist movement will ever propagate. This is a patriarchal definition which is not accepted by the feminist movement and absolutely not propagated by the side of opposition. They will never push like sexist definitions because the movement are women who know what women go through and who know what exactly the issues are. What do they push then? They say that being emotional is a strength, not a weakness. They say that confidence is femininity. And okay, maybe makeup historically was a bad thing, but women got used to wearing it and it became a certain symbol. That means that there is a definition change. That you can wear makeup for yourself, that you can be more confident. For example, how every single person, regardless of their sex, when they have a new suit, when they have clean hair, they feel more confident. Meaning that wearing makeup isn't a symbol that you're like going with patriarchy. They can redefine this and have makeup as a positive thing. This is a counter to the shame on proposition. And notice how, and they have to necessarily shame women for going into feminist roles. Why? Because this is a deep-rooted issue in society and has existed for a long time historically, that feminine roles are weaker, that feminine roles are fragile, that they shouldn't be listened to, shouldn't be in positions of power, meaning that you need to have a strong counter-narrative in order to de-root this from society. Also, you have like the right-wing people who also propagate for this counter narrative, meaning that on their side of the house, if you don't push a strong message back, it will get watered down and nothing will be achieved. That is why they shame these women subsequently, because people in the status quo have internalized misogyny, which they cannot get rid of. How we get rid of this internalized misogyny is by context theory, which you will hear in my second argument, but generally is by changing this definition, is by seeing empowered women in dresses, is by telling women that it is completely okay to be a housewife. They have to accept that feminine women aren't accepted on their side because of like internalization. What then also exists on our side, which this is the strawman I told you. Women are more educated than ever in the status quo. This means there's a scholarly incentive, because if you went through college, you're not just going to say, oh, I'm going to be a housewife. No, you have incentive to go further, to go to another education. For example, by your parents to go and get a good job, etc. Not only that, we have other incentive and other narratives, like being a girl boss, like independence, which is a huge important thing for the feminist movement, meaning that counter narratives exist, and it's not the narrative on their side which they try to tell you that on our side feminist movement tells you, oh, be a housewife, don't be independent. No, it is that you are powerful whatever you decide. If you're a housewife, you're powerful. Wearing a dress is powerful, meaning that and also like narratives like capitalism exists. You want to have a house, you want to have a secure future, you're going to fight for these things. We're not just locking women in houses. This makes no sense. The opposition of this motion is having a president stand in front of you not wearing a suit but a dress, and they're not debating the motion, they're completely swirling it for us. This means that also they tell you, oh, but housewives, if you're a housewife, that means that you accept patriarchal definitions, and you say, oh, systematic issue no longer exists because I'm a housewife and I'm suddenly brainwashed. This is like completely sexist definition, because if you're a housewife, you are a woman, you realize that systematic issues exist regardless of your political standings. The point is, women who are a part of the feminist role aren't ridiculed on the side of opposition, and this carries a lot of benefits, which I will get to later in my speech. Second point of rebuttal is about this like politics point and how the feminist movement seems contradictory. We don't force anybody to be anything on our side of the house. We just the feminist movement prioritizes choice. They don't say being a housewife has unique benefits and don't get educated because being a housewife is way better. They say, oh, you're a housewife, great, you're so strong, great, you have you can still live like a dignified life. On their side of the house, those housewives are alienated by the movement, because maybe you have to realize that women who have the same incentives, there are going to be the same number of housewives on both sides of the house, because you have the same incentives on both sides of the house, and they kind of admitted this. We say that on our side, the difference is, and the delta, is that we don't shame these housewives, and these do. So nobody is forced to be a housewife. Not only that, like, they say you will have to propagate contradictory narratives, but we tell you that you can still fight against wage changes and the wage gap and say that housewives are strong women. This is like one truth and another truth. I don't understand how this is contradictory with one another. And not only that, they use like the most extreme cases of locking women inside of the house. This is completely outside of the debate. And now I'd like to deal with the third point of rebuilding, which is our first argument. We told you in our argument about the movement three things. Firstly, principally, that the movement represents women, and that every decision the movement makes impacts every woman, meaning that it has to be as broad as possible in order to principally fulfill its role. This has not been responded to, and one point of why our argument stands. Secondly, we told you that housewives on our side aren't shamed and looked down upon, which is the main mechanisms and the main point of the side of opposition. Also not rebutted. They just tell in our faces, oh, you force people to be housewives. This is not the nuance of our argument. The second point also hasn't been responded to, also a reason why our argument still stands. Thirdly, we told you that there are more women who opt into the movement because now the movement seems more accessible. Now the movement doesn't seem so radical and doesn't shame certain types of women of other like political ideologies. That means that the movement gets credibility, recognition, and voting power. Also not dealt by, also a reason why our argument stands. They haven't responded to anything. Also, I'd like now to move on to my second argument about contact theory. What is the perception of women on proposition? They're seen as weak, fragile, and not worthy of listening to. Before I move on, sure.
Governments already glorify and incentivize women to become mothers, but never for STEM.
This is not true. There are more women in STEM than ever. If you look at STEM colleges, every single person is a girl. Like, please engage. Okay, so women are wearing makeup on their side of the house and is perceived as being insecure, not wearing makeup for themselves. On proposition, women don't opt into the narrative of wearing makeup and things like that, and don't feel good in dresses because their idols never wear dresses. They never see these dresses as a good thing. On opposition, by our framing, you opt into it and you feel better when you do it. You feel empowered. That means you feel confident. That means you walk with your head high. That means that you're confident in what your decisions are. That means you don't let people walk over you. By coming into contact with traditional women in like women clothes in every day, people humanize them. People who might have perceived them as weak and not worthy before, humanize them now. Because the perception of people about you is exactly how they treat you. Because if they perceive you as more confident, as if more important, they will treat you as if you are more important. This is exclusive temporally because women are more educated than ever and on the most important positions. When men are exposed to women empowered and powerful positions, they're forced to listen to them because these are their bosses, these are their mothers, etc. When they see them fulfilling the traditional role, they subconsciously take them more seriously, and this removes the stereotype that we kept telling you that we propagate, but we actually remove the classical stereotype that their side propagates. Because we proved to you that we have the best impact on women, and secondly, that we have the best impact on society, making the movement have more capacity, it's clear opposition.
Just organize my notes. Okay. Okay. Can I be heard if I speak like this? Great. Choice has always been the backbone of the feminist movement. The only thing side opposition does is make sure this remains consistent within its messaging, both to women who want to have a family and both to women who want to work in a corporation. Two main things in my speech. Firstly, on two important points of housekeeping in this debate, and secondly, going on two main clashes showing how opposition won both of them. Let's get first to the housekeeping. Firstly, I want to be very clear in this debate on the burdens of proof and differences between the sides in this debate. Proposition cannot just normalize traditional behaviors on their side, they have to shame it. Why? Because the status quo is extremely riddled with patriarchy. It's patriotic, right? Women are mocked and belittled for their femininity. Stay-at-home wives are seen as lazy. Women are belittled or seen as childish for liking the color pink. So if you are neutral on their side, you don't provide pushback to this broad societal push against traditional femininity, i.e. you do shame it, i.e. the average woman does feel shame and does not feel support from the feminist movement for wanting to be traditionally feminine. On opposition, we glorify and empower traditional femininity. However, we do not do this exclusively to traditional femininity. We empower choice. We empower you no matter what you want to do. We just don't draw an arbitrary line saying it's amazing and brilliant and you're so smart if you want to work in a corpo. We also say you are those same things if you want to stay at home, if you want to fulfill your dream of becoming a mother, of caring for your children. What do they say to this? They say, this isn't really true, right? Because you have an opportunity cost, right? Whenever you push one message, you have to do it at the expense of another message. We don't see this as true because the feminist movement isn't literally like one big conglomeration choosing what to push and what to not. It's like a group of thousands of creators online on TikTok. We can have these different things popping up. We don't have to sacrifice ad space from one thing to another thing. We don't see why we need to push these things so exclusively, so differently. And secondly, I want to talk about the reach of this narrative because this takes on most of Team Taiwan's case because they're being extremely, very extreme, very intensive in how much this narrative influences the average person. What we want to say is that women who want to go to college, for example, will go to college on both sides of the house because there's a much stronger incentive than this narrative. Their family pushes them to get educated. You want to be a doctor. There's a woman in STEM narrative also in the status quo. So this narrative is likely much stronger, all of these combined, than just this that we're pushing. This motion likely impacts the people whose fate will be the same on either side. The only thing that's different is the societal perception of them. So women who want to be housewives on our side now feel safe and comforted in being that housewife, right? If one woman becomes a mother rather than being a chemist, this is seen as great and this is seen as empowering for that woman, not as necessary for that woman, not as more empowering than if she were to be a chemist. And again, since when? It's obviously this probably doesn't impact that much men also, which takes on most of their impacts. Since when do men listen to and opt into the feminist movement on net or broadly. This is unlikely to lead to like any weaponization because we don't see men being a significant part of this movement in the status quo. We don't see the reach being that significant, unfortunately. First clash then on the reach of the feminist movement, and I'm going to split this in 2 points. Firstly, on the opt-in of women into the feminist movement, and secondly, on contact theory. So firstly, on the opt-in, what do we say here? We say that there are a large number of women within the status quo who want to have families, who are raised in that way, who want to be traditional, who don't want to work in some like a girl boss corpo job, who want to have a more like traditional, maybe they're a teacher, maybe they're a stay-at-home mom, whatever. These women feel alienated from the feminist movement at the point where the status quo is telling them they're belittled and they're not enough, and the feminist movement is not offering pushback. They're basically accepting this message and going along with it. What do they respond here? They don't really directly respond. They just have a counter-analysis saying, but you're also going to push away women who are like engulfed with this girl boss narrative that are not going to like these other women being accepted and folded into the narrative. We claim this is simply untrue because they're not being folded in at the expense of any other groups, they're just being added. The feminist movement is more consistent on our side of the house at the point that it is prioritizing choice no matter what that choice is. So we don't see why any other women are likely to be angry at this. Secondly, on contact theory. The only real response we receive to this extension is but if all people are housewives, then how come contact theory doesn't occur in the status quo? But obviously think about this panel, it's a heterogeneous society. You as a man in the workplace are not the ones seeing housewives, you're seeing the working women. You need to have engagement with all of the different women within society. For this reason, it's very important that you see traditional femininity being like displayed in every level of society to actually counter like these narratives that you might have in your head. This is an extremely important point because it leads to people outside of the movement broadly having more respect for it, broadly viewing it as less radical. Thus, even if you're not directly a part of the feminist movement pushing its policies, you're more likely to accept them. And thirdly, I just want to get to their point on like the contradiction that happens because when the feminist movement like reframes its message, this contradiction is literally the opposite. We're likely to have it framed not as a contradiction because again, the feminist movement since the beginning was prioritizing choice. We're just expanding what this choice means to a legitimate, like we're supporting you no matter what your choice is in life. On their side, the feminist movement is likely to be seen as contradictory once you're only supported insofar as you want to go to this girl boss narrative and not supported insofar as you want to be a traditional woman. How do we weigh this? Firstly, on the principle. We're telling you no matter if we accomplish any practical benefits within this clash, the feminist movement has a duty to accommodate and be a space for all women, no matter their choice in life. Thus, it's not legitimate for them to only provide support to a set group of women and exclude another one arbitrarily. And secondly, we're telling you on logical priority, if we establish like a higher power of the feminist movement on our side, we're actually able to accomplish more benefits for women themselves, more benefits that they would likely be able to like on a political level, which is obviously greater than they would likely be able to accomplish for themselves on a personal level if they just tried more, or I don't know what propositions comparative in this debate is. Also notice that culture wars and elections in Western liberal democracies are won on very thin margins on quantity of people. Thus it's very important if we get an opt-in of even a small like additional supply of people, this is still very impactful for the people in the status quo. Before moving on to the second question, direct impact on women, I'll take a POI.
On both sides, you support women, so you never have to shame a particular individual. This debate is about giving roles that governments generally do not support.
No, I've told you, you do implicitly shame an individual at the point where the status quo directly shames them on every level, but you don't provide any pushback to the status quo. On their side, though, the feminist movement is not saying anything about them, them not saying anything about the subjected minority is directly implicitly supporting what is happening to them in the status quo. At least that's how these women feel. Second clash then on the direct impact on women. Propositions claims have been dealt with mostly in my housekeeping, so it's not that women will choose to be secretaries instead of CEOs or mothers instead of chemists. We've told you the reach of this narrative is simply not powerful enough to make that happen. The direct impact of women accrues more on our side, where women from more minority or conservative communities can actually feel accepted into the feminist movement. They've said this is not really important, right? Because the feminist movement typically doesn't doesn't reach out to these women as much, or it's not present in their communities. But we claim this is simply false, because not, again, like the feminist movement is a literal person in your community. You're always still bombarded with ads. You're always still bombarded with TikToks on the internet. You watch movies made by feminists, because Hollywood is very influenced by this narrative. It's always something proximate to you. So it's extremely important these women feel included and folded into that. Why is it important? Because of their upbringing, they have aspirations of motherhood, of staying home with their kids. This is something they want to do and something they like to do. They don't want to be shamed by this movement, which is ever present in their life and has a huge impact on the world that they live in. They don't want to be told this is not good enough, you should not be empowered to feel this, you made a mistake in your life when you chose to be this instead of a chemist, instead of a girl boss. Because we support all women, not drawing an arbitrary lines between those that want to accomplish their dreams and those that have wrong dreams, I beg you to oppose.
The most important thing for the side of opposition is that the feminist movement is inclusionary for all women, and that all women can find a community in it and gain benefits from it. In my reply, 3 points. Firstly, about what is the motion and how they try to squirrel it for our side. They say that we have the wrong examples of the feminist movement. For example, when I told you that, okay, they're trying to push on us that women should be submissive and not report when somebody sexually abuses them, but then in the same breath tell you that feminist movement will tell you to wear makeup in order to be appealing to men. This is inherently contradictory to the feminist movement, and their whole characterization of what will be propagated on our side is not correct, doesn't go with the movement, never will materialize, and a reason why they lost this debate, because the entirety of their case stands on this like inherently contradictory and wrong characterization. This is extremely uncharitable. Proposition's narrative is to tell you, you wear makeup and you are brainwashed, and this is something that they have throughout their speeches, but never like admit to you, the panel, that they will actually need to necessarily like have this narrative, but they have been telling us in this speech. It also tells you their narrative about makeup and feminine roles is that you are insecure, that you are stupid because you wear makeup and don't study. These are their words, that you do your makeup instead of study. This is exactly what narratives are carried on the side of proposition, and the burden that they have been running from, something that they haven't like defended, and also a reason why they lose this debate. How do we propagate it? We told you that we propagate these like feminist roles alongside independence. For example, the STEM girly narrative. Our first argument is literally acceptance of every woman. Why would we shun like the scientist women, etc.? They refused to listen to this and kept telling us that we force women to being housewives, that we force women to stay home, but this is not our burden and not the debate. Only when we understand this can we actually see what impacts have been done. The burden of proof of the two teams is firstly the women in the movement, and secondly the movement itself and its capacity. So firstly on the women of the movement, they say that we propagate, for example, from first, sexualization and capitalism and things like that. They say that that can be empowering, that we can't empower women off of these like negative narratives, but we told you that we don't use these narratives and that this is wrong because we have a definition change. For example, they might tell you that, oh, makeup is actually inherently sexualization and things. We tell you, no, the feminist movement spins this on the fact that you can wear makeup for yourself in order to feel confident, in order to actually like enhance the features that you like, and actually like fall in love with yourself when you look in the mirror and actually appreciate your features, etc., to enhance your own features. They also tell you that this is bad economically and bad for the independence of women because we force people into roles that they shouldn't be in. We told you that this narrative won't make you give up from your life, give up from your academics, and not listen to your friends and family and just marry rich. This is completely uncharitable, and like they haven't engaged with any of our analysis because they kept pushing this burden on us, which is not what our case is. We told you that women who want to become housewives and wear makeup aren't shamed and alienated on our side, and that is exactly what the debate is about. We're not forcing anybody to be be anything. This makes them feel good and happy to be a part of the movement. And also they might accept other messaging of this feminist community when they're more accepted in this movement. We told you that things like shaming housewives and shaming women for makeup are deep-rooted in society and needs a strong counter-strike, which they haven't provided any comparative to this for them. But this is important for minorities who have to stay home. And we told you that we prioritize women who are housewives and wear skirts. Firstly, because women who are girl bosses and wear suits are accepted by the feminist movement in the status quo. And secondly, because mothers are shamed, because they say that they tell them, you're conformed to patriarchy. And a movement which should be fundamentally for every single woman and should be accepting to every single woman, which is one of its duties. Principally, our principle is the most important because it's the role of the movement. The feminist movement influences the portrayal of all women and should include all of them. And now, on the politics point, which we also win, they haven't rebutted our argument, where we tell you that we have a bigger opt-in, which means the movement has bigger capacity, and that this sort of contradictory messaging won't even happen because it's not contradictory. It's just inherently feminine and inherently accepting.